in a sharp rebuke that has reignited cross-border tensions. President Donald Trump, now serving his second non-consecutive term in the White House, has publicly accused Canada of failing to take sufficient action in the fight against fentanyl trafficking. Speaking from the Rose Garden earlier this week, Trump stated that Canada has become a weak link in North America's battle against the fentanyl crisis, blaming the country for not doing enough to intercept shipments and dismantle trafficking networks that, he claims, are spilling across the border into the United States. Trump's accusation, delivered with characteristic bluntness, triggered immediate diplomatic friction between Ottawa and Washington. The president went further, alleging that Canadian ports and postal routes are practically wide open, and warned that if Canada doesn't take this seriously, the U.S. will be forced to act unilaterally to protect its citizens. The comments come amid growing concern on both sides of the border over the opioid epidemic, which has already claimed tens of thousands of lives in the last decade. While the majority of illicit fentanyl is produced in China and transported through Mexico, Trump and several Republican senators argue that Canada's role as a transshipment point is under-examined and under-addressed. According to recent U.S. Customs and Border Protection reports, several seizures in border states including Michigan, Vermont, and New York would trace 2 packages originating from Canada. While the volumes are lower than those coming from the southern border, officials warn that even a few grams of fentanyl can kill hundreds. Trump used these statistics to bolster his argument that Canada needs to clean up its act or face serious consequences. The Canadian government responded swiftly and firmly. Public Safety Minister Michelle Lucia called the remarks reckless and misleading, asserting that Canada remains deeply committed to working alongside U.S. authorities to fight transnational crime and opioid trafficking. Our agencies are collaborating daily with their American counterparts. We've increased screening at ports, added digital tracking to high-risk shipments, and expanded our RCMP border task force, Lucia said during a press conference in Ottawa. Prime Minister Mark Carney, speaking to reporters in Vancouver, echoed this sentiment. Canada takes this crisis seriously, but addressing fentanyl requires science, cooperation, and compassion, not just sound bites, he said, subtly rebuking Trump's tone. Carney also reminded Canadians that Trump made similar accusations during his first presidency, yet offered little support for multilateral approaches to drug policy or harm reduction across Canada. The provincial responses varied. In British Columbia, where the fentanyl crisis has hit hardest, Premier Jasmine Singh welcomed the increased attention but criticized the politicization of a public health emergency. We lose lives every day in this province. We need more cross-border coordination, not finger-pointing. In Ontario, Premier Alan Grigora expressed concern about maintaining strong U.S.-Canada trade relations in light of Trump's rhetoric. When drug policy becomes a bargaining chip, it risks overshadowing broader cooperation in areas like infrastructure, defense, and climate, he said. Quebec's government, meanwhile, maintained a cautious tone, urging Ottawa to deepen the crisis and focus on actionable partnerships. Polling in Canada shows that public trust in U.S. leadership under Trump is at a historic low, with many Canadians fearing the country is being used as a scapegoat for broader domestic issues in the U.S. Still, support for enhanced enforcement measures has grown among segments of the population affected by rising addiction rates and street-level violence. Some analysts believe Trump's remarks are part of a broader strategy to leverage bilateral issues for political gain, particularly ahead of key electoral contests in 2026. This is classic Trump, said Laura Dion, a political science professor at McGill University. He frames a complex issue in binary terms, strong versus weak, safe versus vulnerable, and then positions himself as the only one willing to act. The White House has not ruled out the possibility of linking future trade negotiations or border agreements to Canada's performance on opioid interdiction. Everything is on the table, said U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Cole Wexler. Trump also used the fentanyl crisis to renew calls for stricter border surveillance, including expanding drone patrols and biometric scanning at northern crossings. Though most attention has historically focused on the southern border, Trump emphasized that the northern border can no longer be treated as an afterthought. In Canada, mainstream media coverage has been largely critical of Trump's tone but not dismissive of the issue itself. Editorials from major outlets like the Globe and Mail and LA Press acknowledged that fentanyl trafficking is a real concern, but urged Canadian leaders to defend national sovereignty while strengthening cooperation with the U.S. Social media reactions have been polarizing. Some Canadians called for a stronger crackdown on smuggling routes and greater investment in detection technologies, while others warned against capitulating to American pressure. Meanwhile, advocacy groups and harm reduction organizations pushed back against what they called the militarization of drug policy. This isn't a war, it's a public health emergency, said Nora Delisle, director of Opioid Watch Canada. Throwing blame across the border doesn't save lives. Expanding safe supply, treatment access, and decriminalization might. Canada has long championed a multilateral approach to the drug crisis, working through forums like the UN Commission on Narcotic Drugs and the Global Commission on Drug Policy. Trump's unilateral rhetoric, some warn, may undermine years of quiet diplomacy and cross-border intelligence sharing. There's a reason these issues are usually handled through back channels, said Marc-André Cloutier, a retired RCMP intelligence officer. Public confrontations make collaboration harder, not easier. Chinese officials have also commented indirectly, suggesting that Trump's remarks are part of a broader attempt to deflect blame for domestic drug policy failures. While China has pledged to crack down on chemical precursors used in fentanyl production, tensions with both the US and Canada have complicated those efforts. As both countries head toward national elections in the coming years, the fentanyl crisis is becoming a symbol of broader anxieties about border security, international cooperation, and the limits of sovereignty in a globalized world. For Canada, the challenge lies in navigating this storm without alienating its most important trading partner while maintaining an evidence-based approach to a deadly and evolving crisis. For Trump, the issue appears to be as much about messaging as it is about policy. By framing Canada as a reluctant partner, he reinforces his image as a strongman willing to clean up messes others ignore. Whether this clash leads to productive reform or deeper division remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: the opioid crisis has now become a frontline issue in North American diplomacy, and the cost of missteps could be measured in both lives and alliances.